Good evening and welcome to Games Aperitif with Lyndon Richardson. The wheel of time turns and ages pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. Antonio Gramsci once described the crisis of the 1930s as an era in which the past was dying but the future could not be born. And so it is in our time, at the dawn of the new console generation. Younger viewers may not have experienced such a cataclysmic event before, so gather before me, ye masticating anthropoids, as I tell you of the before times, the events that sundered that world from our own, and the horrors that may yet be to come. When we were children, we talked like children, we thought like children, we played like children. The first video game systems were but primitive lumps of plastic. The Atari 2600 was controlled with this box with a rubber band on it, and we were glad for it. Thus, at the dawn of man, the first video gamers huddled in their dark huts, with only a used copy of Custer's Revenge between them and the long night. This first age came to a close with an event known as the Bronze Age collapse. The causes of this disaster are unclear. They have sometimes been associated with climate change, the invasions of the Sea People, the mythological nation of Atlantis, or the handlebar moustache of Atari founder Ted Dabney. The Nintendo Entertainment System, or Famicom, was the first to bring light to the Dark Ages, and the second generation was born. In turn, the end of this generation would see the collapse of the Soviet Union. Eastern Europe endured years of chaos, but more importantly, the Soviet Union withdrew from the console wars, although some have also blamed this on the design of the Soviet Turnier console, constructed entirely from plutonium and cast iron. By the time the third generation was ushered in by the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, it became obvious that this was how things were going to work from now on. And to this day, historians remain divided on whether or not the decline of the SNES contributed to the Monica Lewinsky scandal in the late 90s. Subsequent generations saw the decline of Sega and the entrance of Sony and Microsoft into video games, the former effectively killing Sega off with this infamous mic drop at E3 1995.
299.
PC gamers had long peered down at these developments with a combination of disdain and amusement, but the fourth generation saw the appearance of games such as Doom 64 and the realization that the console peasants were at the drawbridge. Once loyal viziers like BioWare and Bethesda began distributing arms to the mob in the form of streamlined console-friendly control systems, and mouse-dependent genres like real-time strategy began a seemingly inexorable decline. Further disasters would befall us in 2005 as the PlayStation 2 was retired and, terribly, the music of Jack Johnson was unleashed on an unsuspecting world. The subsequent 7th generation saw online multiplayer truly become a mass thing, and the now familiar online ecosystems of PSN and Xbox Live first emerged from the primordial slime. Following the release of the Nintendo Wii, console gamers got a taste of the terror previously experienced by PC gamers, as waves of shuffling, waggling geriatrics began their flailing assault on the world of gaming. But this lightning proved frustratingly elusive to bottle. Microsoft, Sony and Nintendo would continue to burn bridges with the people who actually liked video games in a doomed pursuit of a casual audience that was already more interested in their phones anyway. But this too would also pass. Though once I thought as a child, when I became a man I put away childish things. And so we come to the present. In the year of our Lord 2013, stars were seen to fall from the sky, and mothers gave birth to hideous cyclopic children. Subsequently, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, known to historians as the 8th generation, sprung forth from the loins of Sony CEO Jack Tretton to the sound of satanic organ music. After 7 years, this is the only generation that many of you will know, and you may be afraid at this moment, and you are right to be. Scriptures have foretold some elements of the brave new world to come. Of the two main competitors, only Sony seems truly concerned about presenting games that are only available on the new machine, in the form of Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank. Halo Infinite is the showpiece Xbox game, and available on all systems at that. But beyond that, Microsoft does have Grounded, Microsoft Flight Simulator and Hellblade in the near term, each of which could be genuinely interesting. And while I hate to use the word, games like Forza Motorsport, Avowed and Horizon Forbidden West make their respective ecosystems look fairly healthy beyond that. For once, this is a new generation offering as much to PC as console owners, and since there are about as many active Steam users out there as there are PlayStation 4s sold, Microsoft isn't nearly as far behind as it might seem. Elsewhere, Nintendo will probably make a giant Wario out of papier-mâché or something, VR will still be a thing, and the switch to digital-only systems is well underway. Many of your games will simply carry across from previous consoles, as it becomes clear that manufacturers are increasingly getting us to buy into their platforms rather than simply buy a new box. In fact, it seems likely that many will simply stick with the manufacturer they know, not because the system or new games are better, but simply because they can carry across existing saves, continue to use Game Pass, or because all their friends are on that platform. Owing to this, it is likely that the console war will increasingly resemble the First World War, with legions of overworked developers falling beneath the thunder of the guns to achieve a further 0.1% of market share. As far as technical capabilities, a technical demo of Unreal Engine 5 recently demonstrated that, in the 9th generation, walking up to a pedestal and pressing X will look more impressive than ever before. Features such as ray tracing are much hyped, and it seems likely that graphics will move a little bit further across the gap between looking like real life and obviously still looking like a game. But ultimately, games will always look like games so long as we the players know that they are games. It may be pertinent to ask how much players appreciate these increasingly marginal steps across an uncrossable boundary, and whether they justify the Herculean efforts made to take them. In this writer's humble opinion, the improvements to loading times from solid-state drives are likely to be more significant, although even these could quickly be eroded by the increasing size of the assets being loaded. Players and journalists constantly call for more innovation, yet fail to describe what that might look like, or when it looks like VR or service games, we often hate it. Personally, I long for innovations that will change the played experience, such as conversation systems more sophisticated than multiple choice, or text-to-speech systems capable of making voice actors pronounce a character name of my choosing. Oddly enough, the most next-generation development is probably the use of cloud technology in Microsoft Flight Simulator to procedurally generate the entire surface of the planet. While all new console generations are disasters of apocalyptic horror, the 9th generation brings with it a truly face-meltingly incomprehensible prospect: that this may be the last console generation. This would mark the end of the console wars as we know them, and perhaps if there is one thing more terrifying to humanity than conflict, it is its absence. And so, heartlessly, I must now leave you at this time of great dread. Who can say what loathsomeness waits and dreams in the deep, to spread decay over the tottering cities of man? I will not say do not be afraid, for what value our lives if we do not fear death, the destroyer of worlds? I can only advise you to compare your own struggles to the dimensional scale of the coming cataclysm, and be comforted by your own insignificance. In this way only may we make peace with the horrors to come.